19:22 in, and then you got I lost my place here. Where was that? Right here. So you got 50:56 telos, to set out, or goal, to point, aim at as a limit, that is by implication the conclusion or the act of state. Termination, literally, figuratively, or indefinitely. Result, immediate, ultimate, or prophetic. Purpose, right? Specific, to impose or levy, as paid. So all of that in that word, commandment. So if you teach a person to break the least commandment and teach men so, he said, he shall be the least, right, in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be. So he said, whoever shall do, that's that word poio, to make or do, in a variety of wide applications. So whosoever shall do, and not only just do, but there's benefits for you doing, but then there's also benefits for you teaching others to do. And teach, it's the diasco, to teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Right? Did you read 20?
For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven.
That's it. And how do your righteousness exceed the scribes and the Pharisees? We talked about that last week, right? He said, all that the Pharisees bid you to do, he said, observe and do, but don't do after their ways, for they don't do. Right? So your righteousness has to exceed the Pharisees, meaning that you have to not just have lip service, but do, practice, right, what the Most High tells us to do. Now, if you practice, right, let me show you something real quick in the Greek text. I think it's Galatians. Then we'll get into it. If you shall. Okay. Galatians 5:21, real quick. Okay. Now we talked about, let's just start at verse 19. This is real good because see, we're going to kind of cover this as we do the lesson today too. But since we're there, we'll just go ahead and tap in real quick. Okay, so Galatians 5:19 talking about walking in the flesh versus walking in the spirit. 5:19 is telling you what walking in the flesh is, right? All right, verse 19.
Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Yah.
Right. See that? So now what I want to point out is they which do. See that word do? You're going to do something. You're either going to do righteousness or you're going to do unrighteousness. How do you define righteousness? I know how we used to define righteousness, right? But how do you define righteousness? It's real simple. It's not complicated. Righteousness is defined as doing right the way that Yah has prescribed it. That's righteousness. Right. That's righteousness. as Yah prescribed. We just read that commandment is prescription. You go to the doctor, right? The doctor gave you a prescription, right? He said, doctor, I got these symptoms, right? So he runs some tests on you. As the old people used to say, he runs some tests. He runs some tests on you. He says, our test came back, results came back, you got such and such and such. So I'm going to write you a prescription, right? So you walk out that doctor's office, you're feeling good now because you got faith to believe that if I take that pill that he prescribed, I'm going to get cured. I'm going to get some relief, right? So that's how it works. So now we look at this word do. This word do is the word praso, which means to practice. So you can practice doing all those things that we just read about. That's what sin is. Sin is practicing disobeying Yah and walking in the flesh. That's what sin is. So to do means to practice, to perform repeatedly or habitually. See that? So when you habitually practice, let's look at them real quick. When you habitually practice adultery, right? Fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, sedition, heresies, right? You can look at each one and you can amplify each one. We're not going to do that today. Envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of which I tell you before, as I have told you in time past, that they which practice, sound like Shaul talking about you saved by works. Wait a minute. He said, they that practice such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Yah. If that's not works, I don't know what it is.
All things that people practice.
Right. But I'm saved. That tells you whether you're saved or not. If you practicing these things, you ain't saved.
Yeah. Believing in him alone is not enough.
Right.
Even the devils believe.
Right.
As the scripture says, and tremble.
Devils believe and tremble. They know. They already know what the end result's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the devils believe, but they don't do. Oh, that's good. That's good. They just said that. The devils believe, but they don't do. They do something else, but they don't do what y'all say do. Right. So they don't do what Yah says do. They do what the flesh tells them to do, right? Fornication, adultery, uncleanness, lasciviousness, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulation, hatred. That's a big one. Hatred. Let's look at that real quick. What's that word for hatred? Hatred. Hostility, by implication, a reason for opposition. That's heavy. So hatred is hostility, a reason for opposition. Wow. What you gonna do with that? I mean, you can stay there and you can do a whole lesson just from this passage that we just did. You can do a whole lesson and you can set some things straight just from from these few verses here. But now on the flip side of that, right? This is walking in the spirit. We was taught to believe that to walk in the spirit means, you got the quickening power, and you go to church and You get this deep look on your face. When somebody say something you're like that, that's walking in the spirit. It's true. I was there. But now, you in the spirit. Well, as long as you got that jerk going and you got that face turned up,
Look the part.
you're walking in the spirit. Ooh, the more your face was tore up, the more you was in the spirit. You didn't smile. When I was a kid, I don't know how it was when you was young. When I was a kid, the old saints, they would not smile. They was in church, sour puss face and everything. Anything that they felt was sin, they would turn their nose up and they would go off into rebuking. I rebuke you.
That type of believer might not be doing any of these things, but it's the fact that you aren't obeying Yah according to the scriptures. Because a lot of people will look at this and say, well, I'm not doing that, so I'm saved. But you're walking in disobedience to Yah by refusing to keep his commandments or believing that they're done away with.
Well, but you can break that down in one of them words. Disobedience is included in variance.
Mm-hmm. See them. Because their definition of...
I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying for the person who looks at this and says, well, I'm not practicing any of these, but are you walking in obedience to Yah's laws, statutes, and commandments? Because he said, if you love me, keep my commandments.
Right. Well, you can show them that. You can show them that in each one of those. We don't want to spend a whole lesson on them today. But right, and you look at it and see idolatry is the biggest one.
Yeah, but their definition.
Okay, let's pull that one up. Pull up idolatry. What does it say?
Some people's definition of idolatry.
They can't have their own. They can't have their own alternative facts. Idolatry is defined in the language. This is image worship, literally or figuratively. Okay, so image worship, right? So if you break it down, when something has worth to you, a picture could be worship if it has worth to you. Image.
Or the image of the Christmas tree.
Yes.
It's a stronghold that people just can't separate from.
Mine. So I don't want to change the lesson up because we'll deal with that. If anybody's interested in going deeper into that, to those works, hey, Baruch Shabbat to Coach Veronica. Good to see you, my sister. Let's back up. Let's go into the lesson. Let's go to Galatians chapter 3. Last week we started Galatians chapter 3 because we said some things in there, and boy, oh boy, RD. I mean, the brother seemed like the brother was down one. He said, see, brother, see, you can't keep that law. So invite, if you haven't already, invite somebody that that's open enough to reason, right? Because some people are not going to listen to something that they don't agree with. They don't care what book you read and you read from the Bible, but that's not our doctrine. Whatever. But invite somebody, because we're going to break down Galatians chapter 3, right? And we're going to walk, how do you say, we're going to walk the dog. We're going to go verse by verse, right? All right. And I want you to read nice and slow. I want you to read like you punching me in the head with this Galatians 3, because that's what they do, right? So we're going to start at verse 1, Galatians 3, verse 1. All right. Read it and stop after you finish each verse. Just stop for a second, right? All right, go ahead.
O foolish Galatians, Who have bewitched you that you should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Yahshua have evidently set forth crucified among you?
All right, now let's see. So Shaul is calling people foolish, right? The word is anotos, which means unintelligent, sensual.
Given to their flesh, the senses.
Right. Sensual, given to the senses. That's correct. And they unintelligent. Now, to a Hebrew, the word for intelligent is Shema. Right? We're gonna go there in a minute. I'm not gonna go there just yet. Once you get your appetite with Shema, we say Shema Israel, Yahuwah Eloheinu Yahweh Akkad. Right? That's what that word intelligent means. To hear intelligently, right? So just looking at that word foolish, he's calling them unintelligent. So now let's flip that. So an unintelligent person is one that does not know Yah's word, which is what? His commandment, which is what? His Torah, which is what? His prescription. So when a person says we're not under the law, they already let you know they're ignorant. So first thing I want to know, when a person says we're not under the law, I'm going to ask you, can you break down the law? If you can't break the law down, then you're not qualified to tell me that I'm not under the law because you don't know. Paul said, he said, I speak to them that know the law. Right? Was that Romans? He said that? I speak to them and to know the law. So if you don't know it's Romans 7, I think it is. The law, a woman is bound by her husband as long as she lives. It's Romans 7, right? Yeah. Right.
Could be.
So Paul said, I speak to them that know the law. So you don't know the law. Your pastor don't know the law, because I can guarantee you the pastor don't know the law. Anytime he collecting tithes, he's not authoritarian to tell you, I will challenge any pastor that tell you you're not under the law to break down to me what is the law. And don't give me this lump generalization, the whole law. You don't know what the whole law is. You have no clue what the whole law is when you say we're not under the whole law. You don't know that there's sacrificial laws, right? Judgment laws, cleansly laws, right? Marital laws, right? You're not under the law. In other words, you say you're not under the marriage law because that's part of the law. You ever thought about that? You're not married. If you're not under the law, you're not married because the marriage law as we have today comes from the biblical marriage law. That's why when a person feels like a person, their spouse stepped out on them, they file for divorce, right? That goes from the law of marriage. But how could you say you're not under the law, but yet when it comes to the things that you want to embrace, now we're under the law, right? So basically what Shaul's saying, you're foolish. You're unintelligent when it comes to the law, right? All right. It's just verse 1. So he said, you foolish, who has bewitched you, right? Who has malignant? Is that malignant? Malign? That's where the word malignant comes from, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Talk about that a little bit.